Every manipulation tactic explained. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the perpetrator seeks to make the victim question their own reality, memories, or perceptions. It involves denying facts, circumstances, or previously spoken statements to cause confusion and self-doubt in the victim's mind. The term comes from the 1944 movie Gaslight, where a husband systematically tries to convince his wife she is going insane. Love bombing. Love bombing refers to overwhelming someone with excessive affection, attention, and superficial charm in an attempt to influence or exploit them. It aims to create a deep, insecure attachment by showering the victim with gestures like excessive compliments, gifts, and declarations of love, only to later use it as leverage for control. Projection. Projection is a manipulative tactic where someone attributes their own unacceptable qualities, traits, or behaviors onto someone else. For example, an unfaithful partner may accuse their spouse of cheating as a way to deflect their own guilt and assuage their conscience. Guilt tripping. Guilt tripping manipulates someone into doing what the perpetrator wants by making them feel guilty. This is done through phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or reminding the victim of sacrifices and favors to create a sense of indebtedness and obligation. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is a covert form of hostility where negative feelings are expressed indirectly through actions like sulking, procrastination, stubbornness, or deliberate failure to accomplish requested tasks. It aims to get back at someone without direct confrontation. Stonewalling. Stonewalling is when someone simply refuses to communicate or cooperate, shutting down conversation through silence, changing topics, or physically removing themselves. It is a way to regain control of a situation by refusing to participate or engage. Triangulation brings a third party into a dysfunctional relationship as a way to deflect issues or control the third party. This could involve complaining to others about a partner to turn them against them, comparing the partner unfavorably to others, or even creating love triangles. Negging. Negging is a strange form of backhanded compliment used to undermine someone's self-confidence to increase their need for approval from the manipulator. Examples could include remarks like, "You're so clumsy, but I find it endearing," or "That outfit is interesting. I love quirky girls." Devaluation. Devaluation systematically undermines and belittles the victim through insults, criticism, and emotional abuse over an extended period of time. It strips away their sense of self-worth to make them increasingly dependent on the perpetrator's intermittent approval. Minimization. Minimization trivializes something significant as a way of denying, avoiding blame, or making it seem unimportant. Phrases like, "You're overreacting," "It's not that big a deal," or "I was just joking," exemplify this manipulative tactic. Rationalization. Rationalization provides plausible but distorted reasons to justify or excuse unacceptable behavior or attitudes. For instance, a cheating partner may rationalize their infidelity by blaming the spouse for neglecting them when the spouse was simply busy with work. Coercion. Coercion involves threats, force, or intimidation to compel submission and compliance. It can include threats of violence, ultimatums, blackmail, or punishments to manipulate someone into doing what the perpetrator wants. Intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement relies on rewarding desired behaviors sporadically and unpredictably to condition the victim to persist in those behaviors without a predictable pattern. It creates an addictive feedback loop seeking the perpetrator's approval through compliments or affection sprinkled through devaluation. Blame shifting. Blame shifting deflects personal accountability by blaming others for one's own mistakes, shortcomings, or harmful behavior. This tactic makes the victim feel responsible for the perpetrator's wrongdoing and can involve tactics like denial, minimization, and rationalization. Feigning confusion. By feigning confusion or professing to not understand something, the perpetrator avoids accountability for undesirable conduct. They may act perplexed, pretend they forgot or misheard instructions to manipulate their way out of situations, or stall for time. Love withdrawal. Love withdrawal withholds affection, emotional intimacy, and approval as punishment to control the victim's behavior. This can involve extended periods of sulking, silent treatment, distancing, or hostile actions until the desired outcome is achieved. Diversion. Diversion steers the conversation away from issues that could incriminate the perpetrator or make them accountable. It involves swiftly changing the subject, questioning the victim's credibility, or creating a new dramatic situation as a distraction. Black and white thinking. Black and white thinking deals in absolutes, refusing to see nuance or complexity in any situation. Things are categorized as entirely good or bad, right or wrong, with no middle ground considered. It's an irrational way of viewing the world that feeds into manipulation. Character assassination. Character assassination is a malicious, unjustified attack on someone's reputation, dignity, and credibility. Defamatory statements and fabricated misinformation aim to ruin their standing while deflecting from the perpetrator's own transgressions. Exploitation. Exploitation takes advantage of someone for personal gain, extracting resources like money, labor, or information from them through manipulation tactics like guilt, obligation, or emotional abuse. The perpetrator has no empathy for the victim's well-being. Breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing involves leading someone on by giving them just enough attention and affection to keep their hopes alive while avoiding any real commitment. The perpetrator leaves a trail of breadcrumbs like sporadic texts, social media gestures, or meetups to string the victim along. Hoovering. Hoovering is an attempt to regain someone's trust and intimacy after a period of abuse or mistreatment. The perpetrator hoovers up the relationship by love bombing with gifts, flattery, and promises to be different going forward, only to cycle back into abuse once hooked again. Physical gaslighting. Physical gaslighting is manipulating the physical environment to cause the victim to question their reality and sanity. This could involve secretly moving objects, mimicking the victim's actions to claim they are forgetful, or staging odd events that get denied when questioned. Whataboutism. Whataboutism is a diversion tactic that redirects accusations back onto the accuser. When one person criticizes another's behavior, the perpetrator responds with, "What about when you did X?" to make the original issue seem unimportant. Lovecrafting. Lovecrafting is love bombing with a long-term goal of manufacturing feelings of devotion in the victim to exploit them further. The perpetrator carefully researches and mirrors the victim's interests, love languages, and desires over time to craft an idealized romantic partner persona. Future faking. Future faking is making grand promises for the future as a way to keep someone hooked despite current mistreatment. Perpetrators paint rosy pictures of marriage, career success, travel, etc., while perpetually delaying or never intending to follow through. Traumatic 1-2 punch. This manipulation tactic starts with emotional abuse to induce trauma and fear in the victim, followed immediately by a show of remorse and love to foster dependence on the perpetrator as the source of relief from the pain they inflicted. Forced teaming. Forced teaming positions the perpetrator and victim as sharing a common struggle or us versus them outlook to manipulate trust and camaraderie. Phrases like "you and I understand each other" or fabricated persecuted minority rebel narratives encourage bonding. Pity play. The pity play manipulates compassion by portraying the perpetrator as a tragic victim of circumstances beyond their control. They exaggerate or invent stories of victimization, hardship, or disabilities to induce guilt and leverage sympathy to their advantage. Moving the goalposts. Moving the goalpost changes the criteria for a perceived win scenario every time the victim approaches the original terms. Each time a demand is met, a new set of expectations emerges to ensure the victim perpetually feels inadequate and obligated. Brainwashing. Brainwashing is an intense, systematic effort to deconstruct someone's belief system and identity through isolation, indoctrination, anxiety, fear induction, and emotional physical abuse until they become completely dependent on the perpetrator. Trauma bonding. Trauma bonding occurs through cycles of abuse, punctuated by periods of intense love and approval. This inconsistent reinforcement creates a dysfunctional attachment where the victim bonds with their abuser through shared anguish and positive feelings during good periods. Cult indoctrination. Cult indoctrination systematically strips away followers' autonomy through isolation, love bombing, deception, fear induction, public shaming, and rigid belief systems. Members are cut off from outside influences as the cult hierarchy gains complete control. Grooming. Grooming desensitizes victims to increasingly inappropriate behaviors through testing boundaries and normalizing deviance over time. Perpetrators slowly escalate inappropriate requests until the victim becomes entrapped in undesirable situations. The scorched earth. The scorched earth policy involves destroying the victim's reputation, relationships, and support systems to remove potential escape resources. The perpetrator may stalk, harass loved ones, spread lies, or instigate isolation to entrench control.